Muse, or Literal Interpretations of a Manifest Illusion, Part 1. Chapter 0. Introduction, or Existential Analyses of Mundane Circumstances. The following journals were found bound in phoenix flesh and barbed wire, washed up in the dry lake bed which was once called Sly Park. Phoenix flesh, as one might reckon, is quite rare and contains many mystical and exceedingly narcotic qualities, and as so fetches a high sum on the grey market. One must take note of these things if one is to so thoroughly comprehend the vast significance of these preceding passages. Or at least one might find these facts curious, and wish to continue on the tedious and oftentimes delirious task of completing these tomes, of which have come to me in an almost supernatural manner. Upon opening these letters, I found them the subject of two lovers, a bard by the name of T.S., who claimed to be an immortal, and his lady Calliope, who claimed the title of Greek Muse. Their letters are impassioned and ancient, spanning a couple centuries at least, their tales reaching even farther than that, hearkening to the old myths and Olympus. They write to one another in verse and song, in high prose and nonsense, in great tragedy and at length. This humble narrator gives no opinion to these matters, false nor true, and lands on neither side, the circumstances of its primeval binding notwithstanding. The narrator only wishes you of your own mind in these matters, and hopes you see the melodrama in what truths one can. These pages, of course, are not complete, and much of these texts were destroyed. The narrator only wishes you of your own mind in these matters, and hopes you see in melodrama what truths one can. These pages, of course, are not complete, and much of these texts were destroyed. Surely, many were cut off mid-sentence, piquing the curiosity of the ages forever after, never to be known. But here's what I know of the story, if my mad searching has not been wholly in vain. It is a love story, plain as the blank page. Through dreams, through time, through death, and more, yes, but it is ultimately a love story. Calliope, of course, is the ninth muse, and the youngest of Zeus's spawn. In the old verses, she is the bringer of epic song, poetry, and so it might seem appropriate that she is with us here, at this time, in this place, and how likely that she met T.S., and blessed him with some permanent kiss and grace unto the ages. How all things fall in line when there is nothing blocking their way. America, it seemed, had no use for Callie and T.S., and instead they built their own country, made of night playgrounds, day drunks, and 24-hour diners, made of 3 a.m. cemetery visits to pick flowers, made of some wide-eyed pose held to the moonrise, and I wonder if they are still there and telling their stories. The eyes, the ever apple. The narrator. Redfield, October 2021. Chapter 1. Tin Playground. Hangtown, California, February 2015. As always, they awoke grasping for one another. It was cold still, and they made it warm, one hand for each place on his chest where her nails might like to dig. And when they were done, they got into the shower and washed one another and stepped out shivering and wiped the steam off the mirror. She went to her makeup, and he wrapped himself in jeans and his long coat. His glasses were broken again, so he fixed them with hot glue while she got ready. They met in the hallway and kissed, discussed breakfast. They were listening to Prince in an old opera. Eventually, they walked down to Main Street, scarves and caps in hand, and opened the door to the deli. They bought huge sandwiches and ate them on the porch of the place, watching the people. It was almost warm there at 1 p.m. or so. The soda works across the street swarmed with hippies and teenagers smoking cigarettes. They talked about their sandwiches and what they were to do that day. There was no work and they had drugs and they were full and had energy. They walked back up Lincoln to their apartment and began to prepare their special tea. She put on a vinyl and danced a bit. He fussed over their water. He emptied the grain-dried powder from the capsules, formed a bitter black brew, boiled it twice for 15 minutes. They drank grapefruit juice with it, gagged it down, then chased it with black English tea. They fucked again on the living room floor before heading out, both his hand on her head, where she liked to be tugged. And then their walk as the tea began to kick in, down the hill again and up onto the other leading to the park. The hill was hard on a smoker's lungs, but they held hands in protest and made their way. It was winter and cloudy, so the sun was already almost setting, and it made the vantage crisp, clear, and rosy. They walked past the baseball diamond and onto the playground, got to the swings. The moment they sat down, their heads were wrecked with a rushing euphoria. The tea and the feel of the weight of gravity on their heads, a back and forth movement. They laughed and looked at the sky, tried to hold hands while passing one another in the air. She said, "I'm high." He said he's high too and he loves her. His shoes scraped the wood chips because he was too tall. She laughed at him and her swing kept creaking. "Let's just do this with our time, always. Get stoned and go on the swings." I agree. They drank water and smoked cigarettes, smoked marijuana. It piqued their high. It began to get cold and they decided to walk home. On the way, they argued about something ridiculous for 10 minutes or so, and yelled a bit. He lit another cigarette to calm them both down, and they did. Fog rolled in and their noses grew numb. Back at the apartment, they clothed themselves in blankets and sat on the couch to drink more tea and watch television. They huddled next to the small space heater and listened to it click. They watched episode after episode of a sitcom they both liked. At about 10, they decided to drink and wrapped themselves up to take another walk, this time about a half-mile east. They passed a couple tweakers in the night. They asked for smokes and a phone. They had none for them. Cops pass by every couple minutes as the county is small, and there are not many roads. Once they hit the 76, they purchased 240s of MGD and a tall can of Steel Reserve. "This plus the rest of the fifth of vodka at home will get us there," he said. On the way back, they took the shortcut through the trail on the back side of the warehouses down Broadway. She told him a corpse was found there a few weeks before. This interested him. They stopped to drink by the creek and talk. He got lofty and talked about parallel universes and the two aliens that were drinking 40 somewhere half across the galaxy on some star that they were staring up at. She liked it when he got drunk and lost in his rhetoric. He noticed a cop coming up the trail with headlights and they packed away their bottles. They were fairly drunk when the cop stopped them. She ran their IDs, let them go after a couple questions. They walked back and talked about the incident. More bottles are opened back at the apartment, and they made a drinking game out of their favorite sitcom. There were shots of vodka with cherry limeade and even some leftover wine. They drank until way late and argued a bit again, smoked way too many cigarettes through it. When they were done, they went to bed and drunk and fucked for nearly 90 minutes. Her eyes rolled back in her head. He sweated all over her. The sound of their lust woke up the neighbors, and they fell asleep. Chapter 2.7, Electric Boogaloo. Tijuana, December 2018. And here now we are still holding hands while fucking. Closed blinds and Spanish television blaring. We are covered in viscera. Undulation, shivering erotica. Firecrackers budding on gunpowder matte black canines and gristle. And still words coming from the speaker like through bubbles unto oiled ears. Tiempo, tiempo. My diaphragm expanding, her belly rises, her tits perking, I'm clutching on too. Now we're in the shower. Soap used for lubricant might prove fatal if for a slip of bare feet on linoleum. A radio crackles closely to the edge, showerhead bursting cascades down my cock, and sheets none here. Nothing better for sex than death is there, darling. Why else for this, but then for the imagery. Take me to another. She spreads and the water makes it harder to get in, tight, muscled, spasming. She comes and I fall over, bringing the radio down beneath the faucet with me. My head cracks on copper pipe, perforating skull, nerve tissue etches with electricity. Blood spills and lightning quakes the small rain luminescent. We see the outlines of one another's skeletal folds as we hug into electrical abrasion. Tiempo, tiempo. Take me to another. Utterly alone. Vast acres of bristled, weedy land. Cows sulking, mawing underbrush. And me in my old black duster, the one that keeps me warm and isolated. I still wear it, though it is caked in years of sweat. And I am staring at these frayed playing cards on the ground. They're lying on dirt clods, edges curved to the slight wind. I can't make out the faces, the symbols. There's red and black, I know. I make out the outlines. They make flight off into the muddled green-brown horizon. 1,000 dried sheafs of foliage. I proceed onto the prairies armless. I look for my appendages, but instead find rocks and rubble and dirt falling out of my sleeves. I am confused, roll my head back and forth beneath the sun, and try to raise my arms, which fall to gravity of the sliding rock. Beer bottles rise from beneath the earth, making trails. They crack beneath my feet and splinter. Redfield, California, 1937, 2019, sometime. Outside near the borders, we walk on Doc Martens. Clack, clack, tick-tock. To the right, soldiers. Sunbeams weigh heavy on our shoulders with rifles. Gun cocked in gravel. Highway 80 business. The zoo has grown wild with thickets and moss green next to the Toys R Us. And so, all is abandoned. Plastic toy robots blink lights. A meandering tiger licks the half-dried Kool-Aid off its invertebrate. Red flavor. Tiger roars, clawing at its own mane. The interstate sings atonal in the background. Bienvenue. Closet concrete. And the men raise their rifles. Hell on, you fucking Shere Khan. Claws down. Lids were unscrewed with beaded sweat hands. Minuscule pebbles of sand stuck in the ever-fading spherical edge of the water canteen. Swat at the mosquitoes, Tex. Watch 'em go away, I tell ya. And of course, his tone was sarcastic. Monkeys climb in and out of their horizon, screeching, looking like old thievish men. They swung over the toy store. Don't let those goddamn apes near the Nerf guns, men. All hell will break loose. Loose rainwater coats the tropic chlorophyll-ridden masses above, spreading disease and hydration. Beware the malaria and you'll be fine, boys. Mosquitoes bite and pick. Clammy Caucasian hands swap the growing hives. Itch and pheromone. Maine, October 1999. I am up sick with the restlessness. Grab at rancid sheets, helpless. Moths come to the light of the naked bulb above me. All around me fucking buzz. My mind goes with its racing. Surreal pictorials in upheaval against the backdrop of the back of my eyelids. This machine, this camera slipping up the tedium into broken parts. I sweat and am a sponge. Old gray t-shirts with band emblems pasted in the night with the somniferous glue of back sweat. Abre los ojos. You are not alive. And she snores next to me, and all of a sudden I am on to and into the next dream. We are whores, darling. Owls flock overhead. Lying down in the barn beside me, her milky thorough comeliness. Rolling the hay until needles protrude in veins. Her sour mouth unkempt. Lay me across crowded interstates, passing slow rain-wade truckers. My darling is listening to Death Cab for Cutie and going undone. Just keep doing this, she says. And it is October and I'm taking out the trash. New England streets with the odd child biking. I can see her in the hills. And she is balking. Chapter 3. Just touched. Date unknown. So invigorating the alchemy, the new lust state. So invasive the adrenaline that comes with it. I am the cruel and unforgiving Diana's new boy, washed up to dry on sands of want and desire, and waking up, find no shell of a body of a woman beside me. Why would it? Flowers will bend to stem and fall to rot to make the autumn, and still this summer no feel, no touch, no portrait for mine eyes of her. like made of hot red and cool purples, blues in the aftermath when we smoke a cigarette done up in our own juices. When it gets like this, the nervousness gets holed up in the back of me like fit to burst violent. But no, it's never like this. This is new. Her face like flaming sheet raised in the air in the night outside. And I'm floating like with the creek beyond here and the fireflies. 'Cause I can see her. Fuck me, she's a full moon waxing, and I, like wolf, will worship at the altar of her profound and feral, superior feminine state. Shy, I'm the vessel into which she will stand to seek higher vestiges and alcoves. I will honor my back with the dirt of her souls, and sing this incantation for which I write her name, for I am the coward, can't speak it, can't even begin to think it, for it ruins me. This love is a scepter of lost hopes and futile wishes, for I am not of her, she does not see me. She is there amongst the alcoves, I lonely, only blessed to look up and want. But I can see her, oh, though so I see. The grand bright feeling, this euphoria, like a halo I wear it, thine only crown. I want it, I'm addict, I'm an opium eater, and she's my summer blooming flower. It's pollen potent and ready. And mine fingers can't touch, mine cock can't feel the long soft curvature of her belly all the way to the absence of words to describe her comeliness demands the imagination to settle the mind, to wander, to see. Callie. Fucking Calliope. My obsession and drug. The sound of a car screeching freely into the abyss of the long, dark, unbroken highway. This, in simplest terms, is the way I feel when her pupils land to mine and I have her close. And oh, to have her close. But none to yet, she does not see me. The beats I bang with my forehead against the wall will clamber from echo to done. Light me off, girl, there's not many moments. We only have so many hours and we're wasting them on hesitation. I want to hear these things. These things written in ink and wanton desperation. I have not lent my heart for so many ages, and it feels like an old friend, but it is unused and its machinery has gone rust. Have I ignored the telltale? Is there deception in these words? Delusion, though apparent, does not want in the proceedings. I possess too heavy a spirit, too dry a wit. Simply said, Calliope, I would not say that I love you if I did not. It is not in my nature. I am conservative with my affections. I dispense these words in hesitation and in anxiety. Though, darling, Calliope, it has done none to stop the flow of the verses onto the telling temple of the page. Now it is written, now it is known. Love is not easy, Callie. It rips me asunder. Any girl wouldn't wake my eyes like you, I forswear it. For this reason, I know the truth will not tell itself. My song for you is raw, unclean, and drunk. It bends to you and stays up with your image. I noticed right away your eyes were brown and felt the old, cool mud, some dirt somewhere where the hose was turned to a soft hole and a pool was made mud. And you stood above it. Your dress was harsh against the pearlescence of your skin and boasted out like loud music on your chest. I watched you take it off with slow, gentle motions, a dance for the derobing, and I noticed your nails were done up as well, and I had a good time clawing the strap of your bra from off your back where your shoulder blades caved to form your angel's wings. And then it was all off and you were standing above it, that cold and gelatinous crust where the pool is made. The hose runs on. You picked it up and drank from its fount. Your lips were the pink of 10,000 blooming roses. I shudder now thinking of how your cheeks felt on mine the night we met, bending my imagination to make your lips land on mine. If I could have grabbed your face that night, it would have been like cocaine and my system would have stopped my heart. Another man dead with a smile and an erection, the paramedic would quip smugly, and they'd escort me to a heaven where we'd fuck. But alas, I suffer with my lips and guts and regret. Callie, can you hear my whining calling from the alley outside your window? Am I the flea-caught scab tramp you expected who was howling? Am I the bad-faced and bleeding poet laureate of the scum you wanted to find when you set out in the world for your lover? I'm a joke, and I think not. I'm hopeless, you will find. But for the time at least I'll be in good spirits, my tidings in plenty made right from your beauty's validation. How is it that you can sleep? How is it you do not stir? My sleep is absent, and its place has been filled with a hot and dull blue flame. I see a perfect crystal of pain and luminescence bore its way like a black steel drills through my chest piece and makes me a mockery of my heart. Tears the fucker to shreds. God, she's that dynamite, that edge, that spark. Her beauty is volatile, hold her not close, the label warns. But I'm dead without you anyhow, and so keep it pinned to the upper left breast, your insignia. I want your explosion. Callie, I want your fucking explosion. The shrapnel I will wear into eternity. The blast will tear the monster shreds and send them searing into my heart, while they will nest next to the cavities and bind like glue to the flesh and rest where I can find comfort in its knotted and nagging suture, a new tattoo of our love. And if these words do seem insane, consider this the dreadful alternative, that I would never meet the Muse who would come to live in the town that I grew up in, the one that left me reeling. I'll pray to her in art and wait for her to come back to my arms. If I wait forever, it would be a life spent worth the chance. Callie, because of you I have not slept in a fortnight, and I have clawed deep marks into my scalp, and they have turned to scab. Your eyes are the fount which animates the pen, and now I'm crazed, and now I'm infinite in it. I am chained to the notebook, cannot fucking stop, and cannot eat, and I'm past caring. Callie, sweetheart, I'll take this cell you've locked in me, an eye to the window. Ever I scramble to write these words, while the vision of her beauty is still fresh in the hallways of my memory. I know it's a haze, but I'll try. But it's a task, my friend, given the intoxication that the average beauty would elicit. From her male counterpart would be enough to tranquilize a small brutish army with the most pure of insanities. And she's Callie, not your average beauty. I write in truth that is utterly supernatural. To begin my story, I will start with disclaimer and move on to the night of our meeting, the night I met Callie. If I was to write these words in haste, my hands, they do shudder. I might not do the truth its justice when I tell you that this story I have is nowhere near fiction. There are no lies in these verses, and though I do not know vampires, nor I have seen the ghosts of dead relatives, and I'll be damned and flayed and burned in hell if there is a God in this dying waste. But there must be gods, for I have met a Muse. I have met a Muse, and she has made me mad with the artist's fury. What was once unwritten is now set to ink. I made it in the hurricane of my creation. But as I think to the chaos, the crumbling, trash-filled room around me, and the surreal turn of events that have graced my life with their biting presence, I ask myself if it was worth it. Was it worth it just to know her? Now that it's all fallen apart, I dare to ask myself the question, was my life worth meeting her? I'm damned, so it's true. Oh God, Callie, honey, it's true. But that night, I knew it the second you turned around. I knew it from the parking lot. It was visceral tugging. I was standing in the street light in the lot, and you were sipping a beer in the shadows underneath the eaves of the smoking section. I thought you could feel it, could you? The magnets in the concrete drug me to where you waited, and then you looked and I said hi, breathless, dying inside, the breaking of chimes, tinny and crackling. Callie, when we locked eyes. And then, when you went to get a drink, I asked my friend who was that. She was very, very beautiful, and she was. And he said Callie, and I relished the words. And you came back, and you came close to me, and we touched. Our mouths began. Our mouths went on. Rambling, we were nonsense, weren't we? And you talked about inanities, and I loved them. And you talked about grand things, and I loved them. We rolled back our eyes, and you did vodka ginger, and we shared water, cigarettes. Your lips, and I didn't like the songs, but I danced, and I loved it. And it was beautiful music after that. It was beautiful music when you danced to it. And you asked me my age in a telling way. More cigarettes, and I touched your belly and up your bosom to your color. But it was playful, and you liked it. I played with your nails, your fingers, your ever-fucking phalanges drawing across me. Sheets will tear at night. Pull me with your fingers now. And you let me tell you about the woman who left me after 5 years, but she is far away from my mind and drowned in fucking Callie. I was sick in a depression for 6 months because of it, but that was before. I know now. It has melted like wax. You looked like a statue, visions of cream columns stacked next to altars at which bards worship. This shit is ancient. I know it, because I can see you standing there as goddess. Lit matches, burning incense, kratom leaves, opium teas, and other visionary drugs swirling in the matte gray mists. I didn't know what it meant then. I do know now. It's all been so clear lately up here where thoughts crystallize into Sabbath symbols. But I did not know then. I was just stunned, just a half-sick love junkie drooling likely for his fix. You were no prey, though, darling. If any, I was yours. While you sipped your drink down to its icy remnants, did you mutter incantations under your breath, cast them at me? Was there a secret prowess went unnoticed by my spiraling dumb eyes? Was it much like a witch with nightshade and a locket? Did you clutch it when I had to leave and you kissed me? I'm convinced of the hex, baby. You stolen the last dead nerve and kissed it sweet and alive into bliss. And why am I the target? Was it my dedication to the art? Lonely, depressed artists are tragic without their muse, and I think you knew it. So my dark-dressed and lovely Callie, you came and graced me with your whispers, coaxing magics in the night. What spell has summoned me to do this lithe goddess's bidding? Was it taken from the Greek, or did she scream postmodern poems, burn her arm in pain magic? Or was it something primal, sexual, placental, and spoke in dead druid tongues, made an orgasm upon her climax she sewn the spell? I expect, Callie, knowing you, it was more the latter. Your body was made for the brutal raw passions of the searing artist. I remember that night so well, and yet there's a blur about it, and why? I wish our every moment together to be etched into the constellations right next to where they keep the less gods and the trickster hellions. Our mythos in vain now, darling, if we cannot project our mortal follies to the onward open sky. But you are not mortal, Callie. You are all that is immortal. About beauty, about art, about the feeling you get when you are in the rain on a warm summer day and maybe kiss somebody who's close and clammy and humid and all around is the rain and you can feel every drop. The trees brush back pastel on the wind, and you can think on that, and that is immortal, and that is you. And so it has come now to pass that I am a slave now to the word, and it has become my lot in life. It pulls me when I wake. The stories flow through me, jagged though they come, and it is because of you, dear. It's you spying. If you were here, it'd be better. I could draw you, get your clothes off and just watch you. Draw a map of the holy mountain, the humming tremble of your thighs. But for now I will be here, as I am struck with the muse. My hands crippled with pain, and still Callie, she draws me to the table. She makes quick work of me. I wonder and wonder, how do you come to be in California? How do you come to be at all? How is it that I'm worthy of your vicinity? Knowing now the dubious nature of muses, I understand that most men do not warrant their divine and sometimes strange supernatural talents, or at least wise deserve them. Not in the muse's eyes. The muse is an utterly feline creature, coy, independent. She does not, now pay close attention to my words, does not need her male counterpart to exist. It does not take a man of high maths to calculate that this world is wholly feminine. Society is man's. Chaos, nature, true animal desire, and all things of profound truth and beauty, that realm lies to the female. It has only taken a divine derangement of the senses for me to see, and now I have seen. Men's progress is a fool's, eternally unrequited. Logic is its misery. But even in these words that I do spill, feminist and liberating though they may be slanted, have themselves a tone of fragile righteousness, and thus may sound untrue. Alas, as I am a man, the lens through which I view the universe is dirty, wicked and warped the perception when it comes to these matters. I do not wish to spin illusion, nor sell you juiced-up tonics. The story I tell is a truth and it is a mess. The muse is just too strong. In a perfect crystalline beauty she has shown me such truth. And now it's all a rushing, beating, breathing, pores wide open and sucking and growing tunnel down into. And now all the songs on the radio refer to me and to her. She's speaking to me through it. The cracking blue strokes of jazz. It's Callie, the symphonious hurricane and belting lurch of rock and roll. It's Callie. The building thrush and quiet roar of the orchestra. It's Callie. The end, the static, the howling wailing of conspiracy theory monsters in the last numbers of the AM band. That's even her. Still present in the mad places, making demon deliriums for all those men of acromania who chance to live on knife edges in the art. The preachers, the vagrants, the men who hold signs that declare this is the end. Pimps, casino coolers, career gamblers, and call girls. Even them, in their way, touched by the Muse. Anything with art she will bless. I am coming to believe that she created it. Maybe she was there for the first cave paintings. Maybe she drew the first man's hands to the canvas of that old soapstone, somewhere near the Nile. Maybe she flexed her legs at him and gave him a dance, and he felt that first violent and surging burst of transcendent psychosis. And he broke a deer's back and collected the blood to make paints, a sign of his affection. And then their fingertips dipped, and on the wall they went, drawing the texture of the rock like coal, and 10 pills to the pound that what the apish brother of mine drew was a woman. And were you there in Paris? Were you there in Hem's bad drunks, giving him visions of grand battles and bulls? And were you there with Rimbaud when his poetry was soaked in semen and spilled laudanum? Did the unsightly erection he bore with mischievous hands make you frightened, or did it make you fond? I bet you were with Celine, were with John Steinbeck. Were any of them your lovers, or were you just a flitting happenstance, there to catalyze and move on? In truth, Callie, how much of that last century was yours? When the high arts became the public arena and even the mediocre were worshipped at the teat of the suckling audience. Would that you were at Woodstock. Were you the woman who graced the first rocker with a can of lighter fluid set to light his instrument ablaze? Who did you bet and how? When you moved from England, you left a trail of bodies and screaming teenagers. My Madame, nonetheless Bovary, I will you into being now once again on page. These new men of this century, how often do you like them? Are they ready for you yet? Do you spy them and think them savage? Or have they grown clever with the new millennia? Will they ever be enough? I've studied women, them I know. When a man begins to count his conquests, you know he is a tramp and a braggart. And they thought I crazed, some from my being lost in their eyes so long they could not feel it. Some thought me numb and maybe dishonest, for at times I withdrew and was cryptic. Thus is the downfall of the writer's temperament. But it is with these memories I am beginning to see that maybe this is why I was called forth. Maybe somewhere in these old verses and stories there is something that I missed before, some key to it all, something I wrote to myself in these pages. She told me I was a seer and scripted postmodern prophecy in my journals. I believed her because I knew the weight of such things, being a master psychosis and apt pupil of general poetic malfeasances. Divination through external manipulation of internal subconscious triggers and primal knowledge. It is a common trick amongst mad shamans, mercenary journalists, beat poets, and other various vagrants and street magic cons. And I believed you, dear Callie, when you spoke of the Muses, because I knew you and I had to but merely open my eyes to confirm this grand Greek mythos. But there may have been another reason that I am now lacing with your gift. I just did not see it before. None of us are special in all our ants, but some ants are given the odd jobs, and I may be such an insect. Maybe you gave me the gift because you saw it in me. I was a vessel before she came, and I'm a fucking lightning rod now. When I showed you my notebooks, you looked curious. I wanted to read it to you, and you let me, but mostly you just touched the covers, and it was like you were examining an infant, careful, knowing. I thought it was telling and mysterious. You did a tap on the cardboard bindings, 1, 2, 3. And maybe you could sense the scent of my many lovers on the pillows, their perfumes in the shades, and maybe you knew I could handle it. I am a dedicated student of sex, sense, and prose. I am exceptional in this capacity. The Muse can sense this. I wear it like a coat of schizophrenia. My whole life I have suffered with the arcane knowledge and chemical insurgences, but Callie, now you have freed me within the graces of my own nature. After all, isn't that what a Muse is supposed to do? I am sent reeling into vicious circles, the total circumferential ratio of which I have myself sown, the arcs of which I have measured, but I have yet to figure. This rigorous vacation into solitude has taught my fingers their ultimate bend. Calloused, I give them rough skin with which to bear these irritances. And to what credences do these mirrored images lend? In cliché, as always, the writer strives to find himself in the barely legible notations of his journals. And it's this I do with your blessing, Callie. And I'm trying so hard to understand what it means when you tell me that you're falling away now, that you can barely hear me speak. Our love spoke so clearly before in grunts and moans and past glances, on the causeway and at caustic speeds climbing 60 to 95 soon, a blurred country beyond, and you never had trouble deciphering the meaning. So now my phone sits in silence, no vibration, no resonance fills the hollow vowels which make the tone alarms me of your angelic chorus down the wire. I'm wishing only for a call, my muse, to know that you stir dust still as if the nature of the whirlwind. I must know that my little hurricane is unsated, likely tossing brick from barn while pulling tufts from her hair. And as you are a certain amalgam of the female condition, you did perfect the art of tantrum. It was your sleeping state. I must know that my love is still alive, still resting her bosom amongst the cloves and thicket, nose nestled like little pig amongst the teat of the bramble brush where the sap excretes in ovulation. Jasmine and iron scent. And do you sleep, Callie? For the forest is your grave and your birthing. And you become the womb as well there, Callie. For in such a fragile state we'd all fall hypnotic with the luster, lids on locks of steel with the sea date. And surely you are made of this. I know not your origin, but the wrinkles of your stories tell times of ancients, and big primal spiderwebs built on the wall first men's musings. So I guess you would be soft and unencumbered in the eyes of that greatest night, and total darkness would be your tonic. Speak to me in an eloquence executed by the black hole of your lovely impermanence. And as I know these phrases all colloquial, I cannot master the eternity of this. And do not think I speak inconsequential if I speak contradictory, for it is the least known thing to you that the muse is both night and the springing hopeful of dawn. You know that paradise speaks in rhyme, if only to illustrate the cool and clocked halls of hell. And so in this you are the servant, Callie, and so in this you are the grace. There is a reason your image begs correspondence to Kali, the once worshipped goddess, now refined to rule the province of, entitled to, the western lands. Because your chaos is important, I am still in the way of your priests, of your barest deserts. I am still culling water from your underground falls, fell fallow. I am still tilling dead sand with hopes of gold. Thus is the way of your worshipped. If I knew not a lust for your most unkempt gardens, if I did not keep these wolves a secret, if I did not allow the feral confession to my untethered ear, would your song remain the same, sweet Callie? Would the muse exist without the artist, truly? I know thou art the highest goddess, and I set the lowly serf and phallus. But as so, I am not the seed, which begs and starves without the water of your divinely perfumed aromatics and juices, the seed of which is irrelevant without its nourishment. Surely if you make me, I am not witches unto you, am I? Or am I forever soured in your absence, the eternal Montague, the never-ending Luciferian, which falls from stars to become the dust which coagulates into the molecular coalition which is man? Am I forever poisoned with the alkaline nectar of your love? Of these two options, none the matter in the case of fabrication. The seed will reach the ovum in due time, and so in the way of things our monsters will be birthed all over. The drama will become mythos and the echo of our progeny, and so then we'll fuck for generations to come and confuse the ancestry. What once was maiden will become mutation. What once was demon will become halfling. And as halfling will grow through uterine tethers, eyes so blue they crack the edge of diamonds and icy freeze, and teeth so hungry they've ground to a point, and skin so crawling that it will never sleep, clammy and in afterbirth will come the Antichrist, and he will be our beautiful child. He will wear family crests and patches like football insignia. He will paste his jet black hair and plaster against his forehead with acneed slate. His lips will be cruel and the deepness of hue is rose, like blood bit through from lip. And he will tease and smoke in the bathrooms. Our progeny, he's delinquent. He speaks in mass to the alien underground, and while their ears hear prose, And such while he sleeps he is kinetic. Surely the nights when incubi enter his visions, the women might groan for miles, and when his halls are home to the demonic, the men for floors will scream in luscious agony, cloaked in sin and old memories, guilt like a shroud. And what was once love will now grace these gross and ignorant lamb as regret, an ever-crept game of bitterness. And now it is said, dear Callie, that you have not called. The narrator coaxes himself into the narrative of the third to illustrate this next omission. Chapter 4. Some Sacred Orgy. Paris, January 1897. And all awash with fern and froth was the place beyond the pines, your place of birth. And backlit were the bears, cubs culling and digging out of rough sod. It was 10 strikes of lightning and a thunderclap, and then it was you. The birds, excited from the buckbrush, let out a flapping growl like a lion. And so the river streamed with light funnels down the rocks, and so you sat and drank it. Your first drink uncorrupted, mineral-glazed rainwater almost frozen, the snow caps that held their homes at thousands of feet above your infant eyes, they melted off the rocks and into the river. You didn't know this, but your body knew. You were some sort of halfling, perked eyes bright as squirrels and twice as deep. Were the deep corn browns of your eyes yet textured? Were the lost Athenic olive mountain cliffs and plains yet beaten to the fabric of your enigmatic oculi? Were your cheeks yet set to dimple? Or was it that first infant smile and giggle that did it? Impressed the perfect crater like an angel's thumbprint on your cheek. And it was then your skin dyed milky. Up into your fingertips the white cream flowed, leaving only roses in your cheeks and your nipples. And it was there in some magic place with no mortal will ever know that the earth heaved and twisted your divine and naked body out of her leaves. There were witches in the glen, bare-assed as well. Skin was leathered and nails long in the discipline of the goddess. Sages and heavy herbs burned in kettles copper with ember eyes watching and glowing. Here is an old one present in the orange fluctuating form. The mere suggestion of a whisper from her lips would cast the forest to scream. The sweat from her brow a potent syringe of chaos and droplet. Their feet so calloused it was almost cloven, a resemblance to the goats in their gait and stomp. And snorting sulfur. The drums begin, no one's playing. Ominous so the sound, and all the wild, merciless animals make their way to the gather. This once silent glen now flummoxed with the flittering sounds of bone on fur. And all is stomping, their safely nestled eyelids in the folds of rough feather. This is the way that the beetles sung, with rigid calves that rattle slavishly to an ever-following melody, a symphony in winds, and blowing lastly among the heathers, the flute blown through hollowed wood that you would hear upon your birth and death. This is the song of my love, in pause and hesitation, in amber crystallizing to phosphorus, and so the ancient love and joy that thine speakest of, the supernatural woman of which I barred so highly and as I hope so eloquently, she makes her way naked into the glen. All will fall down in worship, all felt bow in their bones, likely stemmed erotic from their inner veins, and so with oaken bows and horns of plenty she danced into the clover. Birds, foxes, wild horses, badgers, and the like, engaged in a ritual clawing not seen for damn near millennia, and outside that glen somewhere east lightning has struck and set the buckbrush ablaze. The critters climb jagged rock on instinct towards the ritual. And so the dance begins. Throttling of skin and muscle and practiced rhythm to the spontaneous combustion of nerves shaking through the lower, more sensitive organs, up in a primal timbre to the higher evidences of the feminine form, so shaking herself now through the head, a gossamer electricity through the temple, and out through that curious and thriving bustle of curly locks that cascade like heavenly fucking form onto shoulders made of soft slopes like the bluffs that burden the ocean. That likely glimmer reflecting off her, and so I wish to think. Her eyes are floating ephemeral, her lips are clutching eternal, divinity is raging, and all the animals gain up on their hind legs, canines and scuttle they roar. Some are squeaks, some chirps, some are of folly, some are game, some are old cats with gravel and bare throats, some make Indian whoops and holler. But a sound was urged out of the timber there that moment. A boulder was overthrown, and an old soil disturbed. Great passings take the resonance in sound as well as resonance, and hers was sung in great clamor and fortitude. The bucks began their gnashing, and the Muse, she continued her ancient prayer and dance. She stripped her skin, and the forest watched. Bulls and all their rages, cocks and all their crowing, my lady danced, and all of the celestial fell into fascination. These prayers none the misgiving, night fell. Chapter 5. The Lead Shit. Redfield, May 2016. What is this redness about us? Me and Callie walk down the boulevards of Midtown, some certainly crimson dawn and all around. Callie bites her lip when she speaks. Guys and their fucking roses. It's so bland, you know, red in their lust. Wear a red dress in your ingenue, fucking polka dots. It's depressing. Pigeons fly in geometric patterns above us. Magnet heads with feathers. Beak-bearing compasses calculating polar frequencies. There is a conspiracy amongst the lower ranks of pigeons, strictly flank position and below, to reset the lead pigeon's global positioning in contextual opposition to the current season and time zone, but no coherent plans have been executed as of this time. I mirror Callie's bit lip. But women are so, you know, they bleed. Yes, that's red. Yes. See? Context, symbolism. All right there for you, really. It's not so simple, Mr. Man. See, it's all about context. You would have just agreed with me if I was a woman. Would I really, though? Fuck you. The lead signals right subtly with the stiffening of a wing. Upwind and will ride down over the American River. Always following, are you? Well, don't you know you need someone to lead? There are vultures in the distance. The gray shroud will not falter, but will change course with the crosswind. Those big birds don't want you. Might come at you in desperation. Always mind a big bird. A team is only good as its single broken feather. And now singing what it feels like to float, some pigeon tomb built up in purrs from cathedral perch. Ring the bells, you lump of pink naked flesh and bulging eyes. I like it when you ring the bells. Damn flesh is good for nothing but the songs. Love to sing the fleshy songs. Here in Redfield, even the pigeons are crooks. We sit on a fountain and smoke. Should we get a beer? It's 7 a.m. Yeah, but it's springtime. What does that have to do with anything? I'm happy. Well, good, Callie. So I want beer. Well, it'll be warm soon. So warm. Warm and beer will be good. Children approach in drab school uniform, their swollen-eyed guardians and teachers in tow. I move to put out the cigarette, but Callie doesn't let me. I want more. She tries to blow a smoke ring. Millennia and a half, and I still can't figure it out. Just goes to show. I blow a perfect one about 3 inches across. Some people have all the talent. Oh yeah? Sure. Church bells in the distance, somewhere up the block. Mexican Catholics, thick perfume of chili, cigar and clove smoke. Dogs bark in onomatopoeia. 10 meters and a step towards the liquor store. Need a cell phone. Don't got one. Cough, cough. It's swampy in the bodega. Everyone sweats, standing thickly in condensation held up on the Pepsi cooler. So what, it's 8 a.m., Steel Reserve, Natural Ice, Ice House, Olympia, Pabst, fucking Stella Artois. I don't know if they have liquor. Do you have liquor? Yes, buddy. They have booze. Booze is good. Cigarettes cost so much these days, or taxed out the ass when a liberal gets into office, so Pall Mall Red 100s. The clerk slides blank white packet matches across the counter. I love the nondescript nature of their packaging. And Callie can drink ancient age with no kicker, on a hill and land park hidden by acres of pine and palm. I used to come here a few summers back when I was mostly homeless. Had a couple houses I'd crash in, and during the day when everyone was at work I'd come here, swing on that glider over there underneath the canopy, smoke weed. That was a good summer. It'll be good this year too. Pass me the bottle. Acid fills our brain in some sort of Middle Eastern song. Chimes from the park garden, octaves of wind through thickened canopy. Oak trees and maples always have eyes. Don't let them catch you with matches in your grasp. Rolling down now over tongue, great brown molasses dried to a pulped poison our graces faltered to drink. Do we have any mead? What time is it? Can you tell by the sun? Probably noon. No weed. Maybe a roach in my wallet somewhere. You're drunk, Callie. There's swings here? Yeah, this park goes for miles. Almost endless. There's tales of men gone mad and naked somewhere past the third baseball diamond. And I suppose you'll tell them then. If I had a drink. Swallow. Fire lips burnt with this lipstick. I kiss her. Should we find the playground then? After you. Don't know if we'll find it. Dandelions underfoot, and we try to hide the bottle from coming children and golfers. Callie likes to dance when she's drunk. Chapter 6. Toes on the Soil. New York, 1907. T.S. Quiet there, monster. Subtle nine things. The world is a blinking light and want for you to seek. 10 cities, unreal. Jest and leper all. You know this, my discontent traveler. I hear it in your phrasing. I can hear the stammer in your quill. Some hard ink for such soft pulp as the page. And how goes such visions? Do you keep them well in your hand, tight and fierce? You say I am your muse, but I see talent sparking from every tendril of your palm. And what stories grip you now? Vast lands of fantastical revenants, grim characters with turgid monologues, operas of great tragedy and downfall, or of hope and marriage. Maybe you are writing to the creatures that sneak into your head at night, as you often do. Or is it dead things whispered to you in tendrils of the macabre? Would you likely know what it is there, the word that way coaxed and fell apart from the touch, hellish state of creative inferno here now to clutch onto? Chapter 7. The Thinny. Redfield, September 2012. Callie won't tell me why the war is on, but I know there's something going, as it's getting thinner around here in Redfield proper. Haven't been out of town in some time, but the edge of the horizon has gone a shade of brown that sinks into the buzzing background of some deep timpani. Nothing. That's the only word I can muster. The people of the valley are on edge and driving. Those left migrate like deer to the highways and the newly abandoned places, searching and unawares. Chapter 8. Dolphine 3. Redfield, California, March 2009. Simply put, he was waiting. His ass was sore from the cement and cold. He checked his watch and noticed it was broken. It was ticking, but the hands didn't move any longer. It had stopped at 7:31 a.m. He lit a cigarette, still waiting for the light rail. After 3 puffs, he got up, noticing his legs were going dead, and made his way to the rail schedules. The blue line was due in another 20 minutes or so. Danny would be here any minute. His hands were slowly vibrating, matching the chatter of his teeth, and it was becoming a problem. He wrapped up in his coat, attempting to gather his nerves back inside himself. He shot mad glances down the street at bums and passerby, hoping they would not notice his suspicious manner. His thoughts raced on, and the street resumed its slow morning trickle. A cat with matted fur walked by and then pounced, chased a squirrel up a stunted oak a few feet. The Gazette was opening a block down, and their trucks turned over one by one. A wind picked up the stale, far-off smell of urine, and the boy just paced, checking the P Street corner every 10 seconds or so, feeling like the flu. Danny rounded the corner and his heart skipped a beat. Yo, T.S. Hey. The boy made his way across the one lane, barely looking for traffic. A Jetta skipped past his wheels with a small honk. Let's walk down here." They made their way past the station, and T.S. fumbled for the antacids in his pocket, chewing one down hastily in preparation. "Down this alley?" Danny signaled. "Yep." T.S. began to unwrap $40 from his camera bag he kept for such occasions. This would buy him 80 milligrams of pink sugared dolphine. "When do you have to be back?" 10 minutes or so. Here you go. Just got back from the clinic." Danny handed him the small bottle of pink juice. They stopped next to the dumpster while T.S. sorted through his camera bag for the scotch tape. He found it and began to wrap the lid of the bottle to prevent spillage of any spare milligram, as was so often the problem with those clinical containers. After that, he scratched the prescription label off the front. Platts, Danny, 80 milligram methadone oral administration, Dr. Reginald Wu. They made idle conversation as T.S. went about these small rituals. "How's your girlfriend? You guys eat those shrooms I gave you?" "Yeah, we had fun, but I went to Safeway later on and I was kind of freaked out. Didn't want to be there." Danny's eyes were bright, awake. His dose was already beginning to kick in. "I get it," T.S. grunted, shouldering his bag and moving on. "I barely eat them even when I have them. Let's get back." The two walked back through the alley and onto 20th. You going home?" "Yep, and on to work?" "This is where we split, homie." They shook hands and parted. T.S. quickly walked up the alphabet and back towards his home, anxiously checking for another alley to duck down. He found a dilapidated stoop instead and unwrapped his bottle privately. He sipped it about 15 megs and capped it. His body immediately relaxed, if only out of placebo. The drug would not begin to work in an hour. He smoked another cigarette in small celebration and went on. The cheap tobacco harshed his throat, and his tongue was bittersweet with medicine, and as he walked he hummed a tune, a half-remembered pop song with a minor change. Back at his apartment, the blinds were drawn and the dark blue drone of the computer screen was the only source of light in the living room. He sat down on the couch and turned on a television show. It was an old crime serial from the 50s. He watched it only absently, his eyes glazed and tired. With his sickness, there had not been much sleep the night before, and his eyelids had grown a shade of purple and gray. An episode played on until the end. The dolphine had begun to work a bit, and T.S. felt sleepy. He set an alarm for 90 minutes and fell asleep to the crackling and faded black and white photography. When he awoke, he redosed 5 megs and ate some yogurt. He drank tea and smoked more Mavericks, getting dressed. He was smiling now, and his eyes had grown a healthier shade of pink. He made his way to the comic book store after that, eyeing the canopy of the Midtown Oaks with curiosity as he went. He mimicked the bird calls. Scurry, scratch ticka. At T and 19th, he went to a marijuana club and bought a couple cheap joints. He hit on the cashier unsuccessfully and left with an awkward look on his face. It was getting hot and he unbuttoned his shirt, itching at his chest. He spied a man with a 6-pack of beer and a small cigar who looked a bit too much like the ghost of Charles Bukowski for his comfort. In Monterey Park that day they were having a chalk festival, and T.S. slowed to admire the pale works of art. Dust was ground into the cement cracks and glyph. And at the comic book store, T.S. began to explore. He went over the stacks with gentle precision, thumbing the plastic softly. The other nerds were quiet, playing magic cards or keeping to themselves. He liked it this way and stayed out of their way. He held this silent reverie for some time, making his way almost all the way through the discount bin. He found a select few and paid for them politely. Outside, he thought, it will start to rain soon. It will feel like hot breath. Back at home, he masturbated once and then read his comics. He was careful not to read them fast and savored them. He noticed the pages were perfect and smooth, and he loved the smell of them. Outside his window, small children rode on plastic tricycles across his doormat. Their father mowed a small patch of grass adjoining his duplex. T.S. nodded. Now came a morphine dream behind his eyelids. His body was warmed in an invisible blanket. Chapter 9. The Rose. Greece. Somewhere east of Olympus. Spring 1942. The water was like a womb around her. It was cold, but she blessed her bare flesh with a certain supernatural warmth, and the water had a glow about her, tiny fragments reflecting like sea coral. She floated calmly in the dusk, a small breeze taking the lake and rippling over her. She opened her eyes. The stars were beginning to poke their bright heads out of the quickly darkening blanket of the sky. She let out a small moan, licked her lips. Underneath her back and bottom, she felt a small school of fish swim past, their tails stroking her, barely noticing her presence. And so it was that the Animalia were at home as well with her bathing. She took a deep breath and swam down into the depths. The sun crested the small mountains beyond, bringing out the night. Steps beyond and the bushes crackling. She rose from the depths and knew that she was not alone. The air was different, colder, smelled odd. Panic took her and she swam towards the shore. The instant her foot felt rock, she knew it was the wrong thing to do. The young man stood at the shore, waiting for the Muse. In his right hand was a single white rose, which was shaking with his grip. The next moment, the rose was floating in the water before her. Elder and enchanted, crinkled thorn and earthly fibers looked closely to see the small splotches of blush. The water around the beautiful creature grew cold. The young man began to mutter his stolen spell. And so by dusk in Likely Lake, she knew the words, had seen them as runes in her dreams, with sigils sought and sewn by fates. She could hear the words no longer. A great pain like choking overtook her, steel chains and bony fingers overwhelming, searching her. She fell to her knees, and rose used now to capture prey. A great lightning streaked across the water, and the ground shook beneath them. A wind, a quaking, the boy's nose bled. And mind you now, in service to stay, she let out a whimper. The glow her skin now dulled. It was over, and the night fell quiet once more. She raised herself from her knees then, in the water, and lifted her head. She walked onto the shore and put out her palms. The young man shackled her quickly and wiped the sweat from his brow. He touched her then, bony fingers clutching. She bowed her head, trembling. He waded into the water, toting the chain behind him. He picked up the rose and placed it carefully in a glass jar, placed that in the folds of his coat. Let's go. They walked up the shore and off the beach, chains dragging in the dirt. The Muse was silent. Chapter 10. Decomposition. Iowa, 1987. Dear T.S., I am uncaged. Tore hellfire from Maine to here in a stolen Civic, and the rubber came almost completely off. It's almost frightening to cast pen to page, as there is no telling what incantations may come of my lingering tremors. Mind magic unstable in this newly streaming state, and every last numeration might have consequence. How fragile is the pulp, the remaining fabric gone thinner, told the canvas of the hidden sky just under. But in true grace I lost the sedan near a great cornfield on 680, disrobed from my rag clothes and walked naked out into the rows behind me, the cinders of a roadside arson. It was sprinkling, muggy. The sky was tense with lightning, locust more than raindrop, but I don't mind the bugs. I want to be struck, I want to be struck. And probably in my new state, free from that fucking beast of a man. Then I was running, smoking a large joint, rubbing the ember tip across my belly. Probably I would be struck. Interstitial neurons web and condensate together, bleeding out the barometric pressure. And I put my hands into the air then, and rousing metal-locked elbows and springs, I was a lightning rod, toes to the zinc and soil beneath. Pulsating atoms, speeding up into orgasm, clutching at the fibers of space, hot melting inertia. And I let out a sigh, releasing sweat. The spores know when to rest and when to break, but I still wonder why this phantom body needs to sweat, but still it is a relief. Roaches scuttle in timbers, resembling the thunder filtered through humidity. Sketches in bright light tunnel the pupae to a sharpened nothing. This great camera flash. I open my mouth for the smile and absorb the shock of a feeling shared of electricity. Thunder caning me, rain from the sky, thunder likely I am swimming in. unearthly pleasure from my lips, caught in stammering teeth. And then I laid in the mud and let the rain fall, covered me in bugs. I opened my mouth to let them in, inhaling deeply, let them all in to crawl, scraping exoskeleton down the pink gelatinous hollows of my throat and beyond. Breathe for their tiny tracheal tubes, sucking the oxygen made to dioxide. My vessel's full to the tilt, muscles stretching to spasm, skin has atrophied above it, and I will tell you of the ripping TS, for the skin made of gossamer weight is quick to slide from bone like fetus from some placental sac, an infant screaming. Scab picked half awake, and then some restless soul woke up. Sour release, some sort of devil's candy, pain surrounding pristine temple, and they eat my inner meats merrily. Bowels and guts released in sweet bliss, and I think I was humming a tune at the time. Dario a dandy said that I'll get married. Never was a father, mostly likely dead. The corn began to raise its ears to the same sky, and we touch. I swear that it is bending down. I am naked but for the bone, and I begin to splinter, piece by rotten piece. Like styrofoam, I rip to crumbles, dust spiraling down into the mud, and there is no pain now, just cold stones grinding against one another, and the distended feeling in some cloud which was my belly, and I laid me down to rest. Some vision take me. Chapter 11, Thunder. Oregon, fall 1994. And was it Melpomene, the benign and beautiful two-face, that drew you out? 1989, and somewhere in the northwest, guitars were screeching. Did your sister wait for you in wet rains and soft footfall? And towards the amplifiers was her gloomy gaze, buzzing the sound to you electric pierce, that fucking clown mask of hers on the ever stare. Did she write to you, or was it more exotic? Those Greek girls have a way with the empathetic telepathy. White horses across glass beaches with notes. Bottle thrown into the Dead Sea. 10,000 pigeons climbing the sills of the Midwest. Alarming farmers' wives in the dead of night and waking sugar-candled babes. I think it was M, because her fetish was on the album. Hate, rape, and disillusionment. Power chords, frenzied fists, biting nickel-wound cord and bangs on that animal skin. They were growing their hair like her too. Androgyny, apathy, shrewd wit, and of the anti-comic. Swear all the little cute girls and boys are looking the same these days, and I went lonely down to Hawthorne Heights to find you. Considered the Rose Parade. The Northwest was quiet before you came. I found it restless, your mark to be sure. But still it seems I missed you. Some grand Evangeline tale. Our travels have become Cali, some place that we are in now. So close, but still we lose each other. So why is it now that I walk across the bridges of Portland and can feel the passage of your feet, lost somewhere in time, your texture lost somewhere in that sweating wet of the town? And I thought that I caught up with you somewhere around Seattle. Particular graffiti stood out to me, like lost alphabets that hearkened to you. Surely these street poets had marked your passing. One in bright blue, down by the wharf. Across from my balcony I saw that beauty on hers, smoking, long cigarette, eyes maybe on the moon. One in shaky lettering, stone white against the downtown loft. As I lay in the alley, something walks by, light of foot, whistling. The street sounds change with it. I've never heard. And on one billboard was that white rose and Greek mask that you love so much, and I knew you would pass these halls. Men were made for your bowing, you and your sister, stringed age-old done-dead tales about paupers, and the underclassmen set sails to the winds gone dry. You were flummoxed by the state of the casual evil, and kids wearing rags made into fashion. Heroin was so passé, and then you came to pass. No one knew for your sly veilings under hoodie, except for by feeling. Some slow bubble rising from the underground. Swear do I speak now, you muses, those women, tongues of rock and roll, you made of leather and open urges swimming past and into. There was a fashion parade on the corner, and back down Grant's Pass until the snow hit you. Tell me tales of slack-eyed truckers with country music fetish. Surely, Calliope, you have crossed paths with giants. Tell me about angels rode on seeds made of iron and crankshaft, how they sold the coast in crystal, cyclops eye and all. Sing to me now, for it is in your name. Now the damned, bedraggled buffalo, its innocence still dawdling on four horns, or none to tell. Tell me about the actresses, their glamours pervading. Don't eat the food when you're in Hollywood, or you might become a starlet too. They have fine dresses and furs, Titania might sigh. High monks of cartels, dull kings of business, and serfs made for tedium. Tell me now, Callie, so I can cut it into phrasing. I've gone mad here and worse, my body lies still with your last spell and kiss. Neither halfling nor mortal your rider sits. So tell me, was it Melpomene that you met there? I've missed you by years, maybe hours. That last note squeals and is sharp, won't stop like the song. Did you meet her there, or did you lose her later? Where are your sisters, like a piece forgotten? I know you well, but I can't seem to find you. That note a lion's call across the veldt to us both. Chapter 12.7 Cab Salve. Bridal Falls, February 2012. Dear Callie, sometimes I don't write for days and weeks to build it up. It's like sex. Gets better for lack of release. Feels better when you finally do it. It's been a few days, I suppose, but been a few months since any prolonged bouts with the pen. Oh yeah, I'm a writer, what's that? Well, I guess I write literature, but all my characters are junkies or drunks. I ate a significant amount of weed a couple hours ago, and I thought it had gone to bunk, but then it just kicked in with this first sip of cab salve, and now there's a great and creeping euphoria. I don't know, I guess I'm just another one in a long line of manic-depressive, self-obsessed white guy alcoholics that fancy himself a fucking writer. What can I say? I like to maintain an image. And now, circumstantially, I'm stuck up here in these cells with almost no nicotine. I can feel the nerve gods clapping at my veins presently. I'll smoke a little more for now, little chains on me. Callie is gone now to wander, and she is left wanting, always wanting. Girl after 29 orgasms will demand more, and with her words and emotions too, the girl that came to suck me dry in love. I feel like you write less because of me. Bukowski said he was a better writer when he was broken out of love. Fuck Bukowski. What does that even mean? I think it's something about being content. Do you love me? Of course. We should fuck now. So I guess it's that with which I'm fuming. And now I'm gagging her. She's yelling for me too. And I come so hard and she asks me to slap her. Nothing about this feels wrong. I ponder my sadism. Her ecstasy in it. You exist in this fucking bed for my pleasure. Nothing now for the brain except for wine and the type erotic. Fingers forcing out the tide. I do not jerk off before I write because I fear that my testosterone levels will drop too low and then I will not have the will to write. What else do you fear? I fear that my writing will never evolve a truly feminine state. I think that many hack writers get stuck in their perspective of their own gender. What else do you fear? I fear that everyone around me is truly as thin as I see them. I fear that I may be as perceptive as I have found myself to be. I sip more wine and remind myself that I should not break my glasses later when I am drunk. I have not eaten much and no one is in the house, so I will likely stumble to bed in a hitched tremble and flop like a death walk. So is writing just form and story and character? Is it something more cryptic? Some mad sigils to type into the codex, the ether now picked up by some alien occipital lobe? Because some words, some writers just don't close the gap. Is there some fuse not lighting there? Were the words not fit with such fury? Or were they not read? And I question if I am not bleeding on the page right. Like the reader cloudy-eyed cannot catch the phrase. For surely I am not read. I type words into the abyss with no return. At some point, this is not art but futility. and in those spots are the good words. Ironic how the typewriter gods smile kindly on bad fortune. It's a fucking art piece. Best work I've ever done, I swear, was burnt in a pile of paraphernalia once upon a time when I was paranoid and trying to kick oxy and speed. Threw all my shit away like a desperate fool. A good blade, a good flask, a Zippo, some fucking band tea. And I didn't know why, but at a young age I knew that no one can help you really but you, and especially in matters of the junk sick. And I smoke again and have visions of tomorrow when I will be rooting through the trash like some dumb monkey for a cigarette butt. My hands will shrink, and I will wash them. This house is in the center of the road, and the windows open to them, and now the blinds are open now, and I wonder if they can see me. Will watch me as I stumble looking for a smoke tonight. And one of my secrets is that I like to walk alone at night for miles, spying into windows from the sidewalk. I do not linger. I do not intrude. I just pass my eyes along the stakes of the fence and along the panes long enough to glean a feeling from the place. Enough to know with my body what it was going on inside those walls. Like when I would walk 3 miles from one end of the hood down 34th to the mansion in the Fab 40s. And I would go from the smoke shop for kratom on good days, and further downtown for methadone on better ones. And I would walk those aisles of out-of-reach dreams. And I was so lonely and so happy all at once, alone and high and dreaming of the discontent wives. I knew they were in there, and I'd walk for hours like a vampire, sucking up their tears and dirty laundry, and hope they heard my melancholy whistle. Some poor boy on the main Ave called the cops for the loiter. Look out your window to my glowing ash, count the breaths in orange light through the trees, and I'm smoking right at you. Chapter 12. The Delta. Locke, California, summer 2015. Hip-hop through the car, bad methamphetamine vibes from down the boulevard. The driver disappears and I take the wheel. Now Callie is there and she is singing over the music. More tea smoked and drank. Can't remember rightly what drugs were on. She tunes the dial again out past Redfield West and into the Delta. We see the holy radio towers poking from out of the swamp, signaling the planes to not fall out of the sky and burn. Miles on the speedometer, we pass the Chinese ghost towns, dead fishermen try to thumb rides. Strange doom surrounds us in baritone, words spewing past like road flares, all about us the river soaked through inlets. Let's go fishing in the dark. Eviscerated worms stubbled with moist mucus and dirt we hook onto that rusty aperture. Watch 'em squirm. These waters once had carnivorous trout, I told her. The small trash fire I made from a small amount of newspaper and ancient caramel corn glows in her eyes. She listens like a child. Product of the town runoff. Fish heads, fish guts, viscera and the like from all the bass men in the restaurants. They got used to the taste. People said that the population dropped suddenly one summer. And those that were left, well, looked like monsters, you know. Fingers started to go missing in the water. Skeletons of bass, steelhead, trout floating up at the shores. Little baby squirrels mutilated all over the place. It was a goddamn nuisance, is what it was. A little girl in the town, her coochie had been bit damn near clean off. It had to be stopped. The town knew it. Callie smoked. I drank from the pint and spit gasoline onto the fire. Reptile eyes poked from the willows on the riverbank. So the town butcher, Todd Boxley, rough fellow, quick on the draw, if you know what I mean. Anyway, Todd has an idea, brings it up at the town hall. He says, we do them how we do all the other fish in town. We bait and hook 'em. So they set out with gallons of raw bait, fish head, cow blood, body parts, and the like, and they section off a small but deep inlet right down about a mile or so from here, if I'm not mistaken. They throw the bait in and wait for the little cannibal fuckers to swarm. They planned on tossing a stick or two of dynamite in the pool come the opportune moment, but wouldn't you know it, right as the holy fuse was lit, one of those mutant white bellies jumped right out of the water and bit Todd the butcher's hand, through the bone and right off. Needless to say, the blast of the dynamite didn't clear the distance intended by the hunting party. Boom! Dicks blown to shit into the sky. They were picking the scattered remains of 10 men out of the radio towers for miles. People say the strain of trout was breeded out of Chapter 13, The Gas Station. Bridal Falls, California, September 2016. Guess it was that we were talking about that gas station. One down the road from here. It was Callie telling the story this time, and on the swings again it was. And she went like this. You knew it too? Me and a friend were taking pictures there, and it was hot and muggy like now, but not so much fire in the sky. Early September, and the drought season is not quite done with its last cough. This time Jackson and I own way. We sit in a gasping dry field and smoke marijuana. Watch the pink pinpoint which is now the sun. We were making plans about drugs in the nights ahead. She drawls on. And so it was eerie that there was a quick, cool breeze from out of nowhere and at our feet. We clicked a picture of the station, and of us, and above us were some lights. Looked like some faked light tricks, or I don't know, but above her was a red spark, and above me a white bright halo. She dropped the camera and ran. Of course she had discovered an old and graying local myth, apparent only to those that walked on certain bend down that certain road. And was it just past the quarry? No, it was farther. 4 miles or so. There was a Texaco sign out front. There is. I mix the two sometimes. Sometime formed between the gold rush and the millennial shift of the Harkin techno god. It coalesced from a few mad occultist scribes, wanton grimoires, and several 100,000 copies of a popular sci-fi horror pulp book series. Somewhere between that and the accidental blood sacrifice of multiple native tribes and a plethora of migrant Chinese miners, the place had worn a unique latchkey into the ether of the place. It was somewhere along the southwestern diagonal of the pentagram that traced the entire county, outlined in Druid monuments from Hangtown to Coloma to Bridal Falls and back. In some of these books it was guarded by a giant bear, related to the African goddess Shardik. In the Sierras there was some of the fallen, held their heads under water till the swamplands took. Don't make me reference that other cryptic river. Will the trees shake off their summer vestige, worn brown and almost off? Are they laughing or shuddering with the heat? Likely laughing. Otherwise the Halloweens wouldn't come with such a plenty. But yeah, I went to it, she went on. I noticed the paint job they were giving it. Read in the book somewhere that there was a desert elemental underneath, some piercing female entity, shrew in pitch and all the accompanying viscera. I know that this is a decidedly sexist oversimplification, but I don't mind much now for the sake of continuing the conversation into more putrefying waters, that is to say, more alive in sound and green algae, simpering gaseous pustules of breathing bacteria, cling to fibers and grow with beads of moisture. And that is to say, it grows there and on, and that's how it goes, which makes the place of itself, which makes it be, it's growing. If the shadows bloom incestuous, then of what shade will thine roses be? Some great writer said that, or maybe me. So I guess it was there that things grew then. I guess is what I'm saying. I don't know, I need a smoke. The black, polluted, angry clouds shift, some wind gone to rupture. Some cogs, some pistons set loose in the sky. We snort up and spit gray mucus, after effects of the close atmosphere around us. Burrs rub against our skin, clods crush beneath soles lacking oil. All we need is to walk. We are playing with the praying mantis, kneel down like them in supposition to the fire gods. All the easterly ants abuzz with the coming western heat. There is some saga they could speak of, their flaxen tendrils vomiting chemicals into the open mouths of communication. Oh, how about this weather, this great black thunderstorm above? Where is this honey? And oh, where is this carbon burning at the edge of our territory? Scramble from the sun. You likely cloves of acid formed from honey, consuming sugar into frenzy until the chief hill that you are waging war against this new sun. Will the colonies send the battleships? To the mortals these are only whispers, frantic unfed electricity. Me and Callie finish the bowl and go home. Next there is a meal of 2 cheese quesadillas, half a liter of tonic water containing sedimentary amounts of quinine sulfate, 5,000 milligrams of calcium carbonate, 40 milligrams of famotidine, half a glass of warm water with 3 teaspoons dissolved baking soda, and 10 milligrams of oxycodone. Wash down with a healthy dose of black English tea and repeat oxycodone is necessary. Pray to the eastern gods of Mengda. Later ingest vodka with carrot juice and smoke cigarettes into oblivion. Callie smokes like the thunderheads above the 50, black and displayed like the condensation drowns the city. Chapter 14. Remnants of Hangtown. Hangtown, spring 2015. 10,000 spray cans, wet and foaming. Spigot, the nozzle. Callie talks about Mildred Pierce, and I don't even know who she is. Crawling over anthills and minefields of clover. Said I found a place out past Clay where there's an open gate and was an old public road, I think. Cut into the land right there, old parcel. I want to spend the summer there. Shifting new clods of dirt beneath our feet, mosquito bites and plague. Cops get called last night. Neighbors could smell the marijuana butter cooking. Get 'em out of there all right, though. 3 of the fuckers made me nervous. Visions of these new boot stompers. Thick husks and on their heels, some hanging flesh. I stoke the brush fire and talk about something else. Callie comes nearer with her naked body, ass raised towards the warmth. Something inside me groans. So then we know that this land is in a drought, because when I was a boy things were different. The valley had one great flood every 8 years, and I remember in '95 when all of Midtown, and especially the suburbs, flooded, and it was then that the levee broke into splinters, and there was the goddamn mayor surfing the crest. Hold on tight, girl, there's a sunset. I'm melting into the edges. Tell me it's made of wax and gold orange hues. Paint me with your fingers. She's next to me and whispers, splatters here and there. Body in blotches on the concrete reappears through thin grass, my lungs heaving. And like a squirrel crawling through knots in your hair made of bark, she picks at nuts and bedraggled feathers. I vaguely remember bags full of X-tabs, multicolored. Some heaven's candy frothing in our mouths set them to clench. Chapter 15. Innocence. Olympus, far away. And there I was, bursting like water through a crack in a dam, naked on that sacred mountain that's told in Greek tales. Someone whispered my name, and in a whip of thunder I knew it was Calliope. I became aware of my form like a pupa becomes a moth. From out of a cocoon of darkness my body stretched into life, and my eyes opened, and like wings my arms stretched into the thin firmament of the sky up there, my bare skin clawing cloud. I was floating in a warm pool tucked between the rock cliffs, the edge my milky pillow. And at what must have been 10 miles up, I could not see the top of the dear old Olympus, and I took in my form, my wide hips and olive skin, my comely chest and long curls of brown, the length of my shapely legs and the pronounced curvature of my ass. I knew my own beauty, and then instantly knew why it was. And in an aching sex and profundity, I was thrust forth, gasping for air. My new lungs breathed torn and raw and pink with virgin sacred oxygen, yellow grain of mucousy tendrils soaking up the cherry-ripe sap. My new limbs quiver into animation, a scratching discovery, and so my heart, unused though its pipes, began to thrum a steady rhythm, bloom, bloom, bloom. And then a voice it called, all out and around and above me, quaking like thunder. Hear me, daughter, for tonight is of great import, and so is thusly recorded in constellation, a heavenly rote for mortal reference. And why is it that you are? And what is of such relevance to qualify amongst the duly ranked heavenly offices? Am I such a being, thou shalt ask? Am I such a body? Well, I can answer you assuredly, Calliope, you have such a body indeed. To which I answered nothing, simply stared, my eyes wide open, taking up the clouds and the wicked heights of her that Olympus. Nothing then? Well, all how it is likely. I never was one much for thine offspring, but either way, my wings will spring upon you always, dear daughter. As clouds to the horizon, your father will be found in the light-laced linings of the clouds above. And if you fall into turmoil, Calliope, you need not but to look at the sky and call my name. Likely the thunder god will come henceforth. His voice ended, and in this moment I fell. The mountain below me shattered, and the wind took up, and all about me was the chasm then. Malnourished in form were the splinters of rock that accompanied me on that descent. I remember them well because I was afraid they would skewer me on whatever vestige or stone cabinet that would catch my body, but there were none of these spiked landings. I did not fall to the ground. The abyss swallowed me, as it is in the nature of the abyss to do such things, and I knew nothing, and then black. The next thing I remember was sun on my face, how it felt warm on my cheeks. I was someplace warm. Through the gray filter of my half-lidded eyes I could see the luminescent tendrils of some blades of grass, waving in a slight breeze. I opened my eyes and saw that I was lying in a field of sunflower. I didn't know how I knew they were sunflower, but I knew that yellow flower. It was in pinwheels of summer flora that I knew this world the first, and I stood up. It was a semi-dry land, olives and manzanita and wandering goat. One day soon it would call itself Greece. I walked naked to the villages beyond, knowing that there were those left that I was meant to meet. Soon there would be the first scratchings of philosophy, and so the grand art, and I would lend my bosom to these teething savages. It was unused and awaiting its first tasting, so you can't blame a girl for walking down into that valley. It was nothing but fate and a sweet tight tension. Romance the bud, affection the flower. Chapter 16. Whiskey and Lemon. Boston, November 1919. And so, bedraggled and weary, I tell this tale about my muse, and so I ramble and so I write, but never once did I stop to spin a yarn about thine self, and so it is that which I will scribe to you, that which I am most enamored in, goddesses and beautiful prophetesses albeit. Now I present most humbling and most justly the story of myself. The thoughts and stories preceding are of an odd timing, but do well to elucidate the surreal happenstances of my so relevant consciousnesses, and as so serve this allegorical purpose. I was godly in my dreams last night, and then I came back down to earth and was this carnivorous alcoholic parasite once more. Flummoxed to the bottom, I was a barnacle phantom suckling at the teat of the bittersweet algae. And I guess I'd ring it so mundane, this life of the half-dead, mostly starved broke writer. I guess that life, it seemed so vibrant underneath the gray and swallowing phosphorescent lights of this languid and laborious life. Surely you could tell me of your dreams, sweet prophet. Surely you could give me hints as to the vague symbols that plague your sand-swept mind. And so these symbols are left to all of man as well. Surely young is of no consequence in the steeple of darkened god forms, which is the grand open vestige of humanity's unconscious. Let me tell you then of beasts and glories. Let me tell you then of unkempt desires and lost frequencies. Let me tell you then of my dreams. So it was always searching, always lost on that road to it, some house there out in the woods, and so I go to it. And it's always miniature, and it's always porcelain, and it's always there waiting. So this is the place where I go in the back of my brain, where it's silent, and where there's a small room with a television, and it only picks up odd channels, late-night horror movies and Clark Gable, old romanticism and black and white. I stay here till the rain stops, and my old German shepherd, the one my mother had and her mother before her, he guides me through the thick pine and through gravel and through an avalanche. He hears distant bells and calls that I cannot, and so the mist enfolds us and I clutch onto her. Her fur matted and wet, she knows the way. So I get there. So many roads and avenues. The desert stretches out there. Lead north to get to winter. The spring it is a byway. Lead yourself west, you'll get to sunset. And if only there were so many words. But all you need to know is that I was lost and then I came upon an avenue. Any road here could lead to anywhere, thus is our peace. So I took that avenue down and it led to a beach. We were carving pumpkins and watching whales. Their thin and aqueous fins stood stark against the backwater. The sharks were more cloven, more poisonous and troop. And we were digging up, hiking up trails. There was dynamite in our gloves, and we were drinking wine on their lavender and salt-stenched shores. And then it came. A torrential darkness like the locust and the plague. All the villages, all the huts, all the coves along the western border, all of them ran. All civilians called back to the mainland. And so we were there, stuck on the shore with the tidal wave coming. And so we called to the patrons to let loose their jewels and weighty metals. And so I called, grab onto this tree, its roots are deep into the sand, and if we clutched long enough we might be able to withstand. Water flowed and blood ran. All was dark, he clutched onto. All was dark again, and then he awoke. Chapter 17. Epilogue. Existential Analyses of Mundane Circumstances. Hangtown, 2015. Why, you are some strange furry creature there. Come onto the staircase, and oh, so it creaks up 1, 2, 3, 4 stairs. This rail has been a knobbin. No singular curvature like the present one, not eluding your fingertips, smooth as the grain, some vague, far-off maple scent. This one bears emblems sketched by teenagers, broke in and made in curses. Clutch it until the 5th step, oh how it creaks, almost there now, 6th. Dragging nails underfoot, worn boots, none the hammer. Stale nicotine in the corner, warm pocket of air, breeze heavy with dust mite, and like you've made it to the end and now the hallway. Is it me talking to you, or the collection of sounds that gone thick against the exposed fiberglass, stuck in nostrils emanating faint? 3 rooms, side by side, hollowed out rectangles in the wood, coaxing entrance. 4 by 7 by 1.3, and through it. Can't remember if it was oak or saplings of maple, but ah hell, it's corroded now, spongy with termites and all to the porous with it. Number 1, the door to the right. And why was it the first? The closest is the left, isn't it? Well, if it was the closest, then it wouldn't be the left, would it? So the right is the first? It always is, isn't it? I picked the middle first. Where's the knob? There is no knob. Why? Because there's no door. Oh yes, that would make sense. There's quite a breeze. It's coming from in there. Quite cool, I might add. And so the moisture from out come to condensate upon the breaking of said threshold, said the entrance to the door on the right. Nothing here but some clocks, some matches, and view onto the front lawn. Looks manicured and astro green from first glance. Cheery, neat, bright off the top. Some planter boxes, strawberry bush, lamb's ear, and oregano. In the corner a burnt chair. Forget how it was burnt. Number 2, the door down the center. And so it was said once by an entity with a small amount of significance that this is where they put the old things. Orphans by birth, if there was right in calling to the term. Stuffed shelves in the heart of the room where there usually would be the absence of architecture. Files archived, with no semblance. There is something to be said about the nakedness of objects in flux, some chaos waiting to be coaxed into fetal organization, like paper waiting to be filled with words. Here now there is a drawer marked Literal Interpretations of Manifest Illusions, 1979 through 1992. Flipping through it leaves the palms in a state of euphoria. Beyond that, and its primitive mystical pharmacopoeia, South Americas and Southeast Asia, also including New Jersey. 10,392.2 through 10.777779. Dream functions, loud to soft, color-coded. Synapses 27,996,713 through 586,400.